If you are familiar with me and my work, if you've been watching for a while, you probably know that there's basically no one in this building right now who knows less about sports than I do. I don't know the inside baseball, the inside basketball, or pretty much anything else. And yet, during my prep for this interview, fascinating story of racism in the ownership of the Houston Astros, implications involving the Department of Defense, and also the future of online journalism that has implications that go far beyond sports. And so I'm hoping to learn a lot. Hopefully you will learn a lot as well, as we're joined by our next guest, sports columnist for the New York Daily News, Bradford Davis. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Very glad to have you here. And like I said, very interesting story you've written up here about the ownership of the Houston Astros and some of the lawsuits that they're facing. So for our audience, catch them up to speed a little bit on what's been going on.
Well, to be clear, had faced and ended up settling some time ago. But the owner of the Houston Astros, a man named Jim Crane, before he made his billions rather. With a logistics company based in Houston, where he owns now the Houston Astros. And during his time running that company, there were significant lawsuits, or rather, accusations against him of racism, or rather, the running of the company, racism, gender discrimination. All sort, kind of anything that is bad about running a company existed with Jim Crane's previous ownership. It's very reminiscent of the whole Donald Sterling scenario, where Sterling was banned from the league because they caught him, touching the 1/3 rail that exists within, I guess, American discourse about racism, which is saying a racial slur.
Yeah.
But before that, he had made his fortune off of his housing business, but it also discriminated relentlessly against Mexican Americans in Southern California. So it was one of those. It was a scandal that never actually took off, and the same thing happened, in my opinion, with the Houston Astros. Jim Crane had had run a company in a very scandalous light, had paid out hundreds of settlements to employees at his company, and yet didn't really suffer any consequences.
I'm really glad that you pointed out that that he has been able to so far dodge actually being recorded saying something racist. And it's weird that, even in the case of like something over in politics with Donald Trump, many people for years have been like, they're gonna find the tape of him. And it's like, do you really need to hear a person say something when you can take a look at their hiring practices, their pay practices, and all of that? It is very weird that we focus so much on what feels like concrete evidence when there's so much evidence out there that paints a pretty clear picture.
Yeah, saying mean words is one thing, but a history of employment discrimination tangibly impacts lives. That is, in my opinion, the true scandal. And it's a shame that he wasn't held more accountable by Major League Baseball when he's pursued a purchase of the Houston Astros sometime after those settlements came out. The sale did go through, and the Astros have been very successful under his regime. But I wanted to bring some attention to his past after the Astros had one of their top executives had harassed really a journalist who was an advocate for domestic violence causes within baseball.
Yeah.
Because the Astros had employed a pitcher who was, I believe, credibly accused of domestic violence, so much so that Major League Baseball suspended that pitcher for some time last year. And so you kind of see the same through line of not handling serious offenses within the organization. Now, finally, this executive was terminated after a week of constant scrutiny about his actions. But the Astros had denied it at first. They had tried to smear that journalist's testimony. They did everything they could to try and evade the situation.
Yeah.
It's a playbook that is sadly all too familiar with let's call Crane run organizations, and I hope that that there's more attention brought to that.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know this, I learned something really interesting from your article that logistics company had been sued by the DOJ 4 times for allegations of war profiteering, which when I got to that, I was like, I thought I was reading about sports. I did not expect this. That they're apparently overcharging.
I was.
Sorry, continue.
I was shocked. No, it's fine. I was shocked. Like, oh, it's not just racism or gender discrimination. They every kind of like bad thing you can imagine had followed Crane Logistics or rather Eagle Logistics, the company he had run. And again, like I said, it's while the Department of Justice has not yet sued the Houston Astros for being good at baseball or anything like that. The word I keep coming back to is through line. It's a pattern that I think I want discussed.
So as I said in the intro, I don't actively follow any sports now, although I have in the past. So just like as an outsider viewing it, it seems like in multiple sports, the owners of sports teams don't necessarily tend to be the best people. And racism seems to be a thing that crops up pretty commonly. And I'm curious, sometimes it seems to hurt them. Sometimes they seem to skate by and it's not much of an issue. As you've been following a number of different stories, what do you think is the defining factor that says that there will be consequences or not for the sorts of things that you've identified in this case with the Houston Astros?
Saying the N-word.
Really, yeah.
Or saying something, that is obscene, that would, the kind of thing that would get me bleeped, on a show like this. That seems to be the only thing that really affects things. Mark Schott, for example, who was the owner of the Reds and Reds for many years, was she was actually given serious consequences for making very racially, I hate the phrase, but racially charged statements about her black players at the time. So that's the only kind of thing that really moves the needle, sadly, in throughout any of the 3 professional sports. I mean, the Washington football team famously has a name that is considered a slur by many First Nations people. So that is unfortunately the only thing that really is a true third rail, but a whole lot of casual employment discrimination accusations like what happened with the Astros, or not with the Astros, but rather with Jim Crane's previous business, get swept under the radar or swept under the rug and never really given full consequences that lead to results.
So let's turn to another topic now, because although, look, I wasn't like a daily viewer or reader of Deadspin, but I'm familiar with it, and I've been following at least to some extent the development with it. There was this attempt to sort of get them to stop talking about things outside of hard sports information, the mass layoffs and everything. As a sports journalist yourself, what have you made of this set of developments with Deadspin?
Well, it certainly drives up my own anxieties of working in a very insecure industry. But I truly admire, what Deadspin was. They told the truth fearlessly. They have brought many extremely important stories to light. Some very silly stories as well. Mm-hmm. But plenty of serious ones. One that comes to mind is the culture of sexual assault, at Baylor University that was Deadspin did a whole lot of the legwork and reporting there. To bring to bring that to the front of I guess the public mind. It's very frustrating that a website, a company that was independently successful, that had found an audience, a readership that worked for them, was first litigated to death. That in a way that led to their financial troubles, being forced into bankruptcy, and then sold to a number of owners that did not rightly steward what they had, this very valuable asset they had, finally leading to what truly kills Deadspin, which was an edict from their current owner to stick to sports. So that led to a lot of their employees leaving the leaving the company, and by doing so, maintaining their integrity. So again, nonetheless, even as Deadspin is sort of a zombie of sorts at this point, none of the staff that were previously, rather the editorial staffers are with the company anymore. I really admire and appreciate that they took a stance, that they decided not to take a paycheck, so that they can, I guess, rest their head at night knowing that they practice real journalism to the end.
I agree. It's a difficult thing to do. I mean, none of those people were pulling in millions of dollars, but I respect what they did. So one final question, just because you mentioned the anxiety it gives you, is it possible that the mass resigning and the fact that it seems like the majority of the public is siding with the writers in this, is it possible that that might send a signal to other potential executives or moves to sort of like more tamp down on journalism at other outlets, that this could actually be counterproductive for them?
Shoot, I certainly hope so. I should also say that, I have, my own writing has benefited dramatically from Deadspin. Even now, I have multiple coworkers who are Deadspin alum. So, and that's at the New York Daily News, which is not a new media institution by any means. But yet, I think in a lot of ways, though, no publication is perfect. We sincerely try to I think speak truth to power in our sports coverage.
Yeah.
And I hope that it emboldens other writers and editors and editorial staffers to fearlessly speak, to tell the truth, to be accountable to the readers, and that it kind of leaves a few people shook about what they're getting into when they decide to buy a media company.
Yeah.
So that hopefully it meets out the the private equity types and the people who just want to turn what we do into a content farm, and leads to owners who actually believe in the cause. I know there are probably not too many of them, but for those out there, I hope that those folks are the ones that end up placing the highest bid going forward.
I share that same hope. Bradford Davis of the New York Daily News, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.